Are you about to embark on marathon training? This could be your first marathon, or you could be an experienced marathoner, but you're still looking for ways to either crush a PR by running faster or actually complete the marathon training cycle without needing to miss workouts because you suffered a stubborn injury that seems to always creep back up. You want to learn the secret that is helping runners crush their marathon race, feeling stronger than ever. Spoiler alert, the secret is following these 12 marathon training mistakes. Welcome to episode 179 on the Healthy Runner podcast, where we help you get stronger, run faster, and enjoy lifelong injury-free running. I have Coach Lou back on the show from our Healthy Runner coaching team to share all of his knowledge, experience, and wisdom about the top mistakes you need to avoid during your marathon training so you can not only crush your race, but enjoy lifelong injury-free running after the race. Coach Lou, you know how we do this. Give all the new listeners in our community a little bit about yourself and let us know why you love to run.
Okay, I'm Coach Lou. I'm a run coach as part of the Spark Healthy Runner team. I'm a personal trainer. I'm also a coach in the Ben Run Club in Boston. And Ben Run Club is a club of about 100 people, but more than half of them are running Boston over and over again. It's a pretty dedicated club. And a lot of them are Boston volunteers too.
Yeah, so shout out to the Ben Running Club in the Boston area. And tell us how many marathons have you run personally yourself, Lou?
I ran 15 marathons and two ultra relays, a couple of half marathons, probably not as much as marathons. And of all these 15 marathons, I did marathon in 12 states. And here are all the medals.
Yeah, I
Right.
love your medal rack, and you got three Bostons behind you, and you're definitely checking off a lot of those states on the map to your goal of 50 marathons. So you are an experienced marathoner. Like, you're not like myself that's run two. You know, I'll be running my third this year in
Yay.
2023, but you've done this before. You've run this yourself many times. And, tell us, how many athletes do you think you've actually coached to meet their marathon dreams and make them a reality?
I coach runners for all distances. About 50 runners with various distances, but about 30 marathon runners. A big
Yeah.
chunk of them are marathon runners.
Yeah. So you definitely are experienced from a programming side as well. And you've coached many different types of runners
Mhm.
to, be able to get to that 26.2 finish line. And that's why I wanted to really bring you on the show today when I was thinking about this topic as we're embarking on marathon training. I wanted to really cover this of like, what are the most important things that we need to avoid as runners as we really get into the training. So not so much from a race standpoint and race
Mhm.
execution, but as we get, into this 16, 20, maybe even 24 weeks of kind of marathon training, what are the things that we really need to avoid? So that's why I really wanted to bring you back on the show to talk about this topic. And for those that don't know, I am Dr. Dwayne Scotty. I'm a running physical therapist and coach. And us at Spark Healthy Runner have given hundreds upon hundreds of runners a plan for getting stronger and faster without injury during their marathon training. And this specific training today, we are going to share our top tips on what to avoid in your marathon training so you don't make the same mistake many runners make when deciding to train for a marathon. And our
Mhm.
plan will work for you. All you need to do is really stay tuned, follow these tips that Coach Lou is going to share. Next, you need to take action. and implement these into your specific training. So you can't just learn and listen, but you actually need to implement and do. And then lastly, what we ask is that you share this with a running friend who has been frustrated with getting injured every time they train for a marathon, or they're wondering why their marathon times are not getting any faster. And if you don't do the three things that I just outlined, what's going to happen is you're going to continue to like be frustrated that every time you train for a marathon, you don't have the quote unquote fitness, right? Or you get injured, or you're not getting any faster on race day, and you just think you're getting too old for running. So there are 6 parts of your running journey that need to be optimized so you can run strong and last long. What are those parts? Mindset, strength training, run plan, nutrition, recovery, and your race strategy. And when you execute these 6 key parts of your running journey, you'll not only feel more confident in getting stronger and faster, you'll stay healthy and enjoy the process of running again and crush some marathons. So Coach Lou's 12 marathon training mistakes to avoid is not only going to relate to the run plan bucket, you will notice, but we're going to also be filling your mindset, strength training, nutrition, and recovery buckets as well. And if you want to learn more about our 6 key parts to optimize your running journey, you can download your free copy of our How to Grow as a Runner framework. Just go to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/grow or click the link wherever you are watching or listening to this training. So, Coach Lou, I'm excited to get into this. I want to know, what is the first marathon training mistake that we want to avoid?
The marathon training we start with mind. We will say that's physical, but it also always begins in the mind. So the first thing I want to mention is that in the way early in the goal setting phase, before you even start training, how do you set a goal? Do you set a goal based on your target, an arbitrary target? For example, I want to break 4 hours, regardless of however your current fitness is. Just, oh, I like to break 4 hours because it's cool, or because your colleague has done that, and that looks, you hang out all the time, you feel, oh, if he can do that, I can do that too.
Right.
So in the goal setting, you want to start with that.
So we want to,
you want to set a goal that's for you, not for others. So do not compare with others. Set a goal that's for you.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think
Not
from what I
others.
heard here is, in this goal setting phase, you kind of really shared like 2 mistakes to avoid. The first mistake to avoid is choosing your plan based on some arbitrary target level of, I'm going to run a sub 4-hour marathon. I'm going to run a sub 3:45 marathon, sub 3:30, right? Like whatever that arbitrary target versus what your current level of fitness is. And then number 2 is really comparing yourself to others, right?
Or your
Or
younger self.
or your younger self. Yeah. So maybe someone who hasn't run a marathon in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I've had clients, right, who have kind of taken a hiatus as they've had like 2 children, 3, 4, 5. Like the latest client, she's got 5 kids because she hasn't run a marathon in, I think it's like 15 years now. So kind of comparing yourself to like what you did like 15 years ago.
Yes.
All right. All right. And even probably, comparing yourself to others that, oh, if, a friend of yours who you maybe casually go for runs with on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, they ran a 350 marathon, like you should be able to do that too. Right. All right.
It's good to have a high goal, but really don't be dragged into comparison. And I'll say do not just choose a plan based on your target. Choose a plan based on your current fitness. Start from where you are and build up to whatever you can.
Yeah. So having what I'm hearing is realistic goals,
Yes.
right? And not just having that pie in the sky, and not just making this goal be a hard goal because you can do hard things, and you want to run this sub 4 hour marathon because it just sounds good, or other runners who have done it, and you quote unquote will be classified as a faster marathoner. And you can make that time whatever you want, by the way, right? It's all arbitrary, it's all relative. um, but making smart goals, and something that's realistic for what you run recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So those first two marathon training mistakes to avoid really relate to goal setting. The
Mm-hmm.
next grouping that you have in your list that you're going to share really relates to kind of designing the right marathon plan for you. So,
Yeah.
what's that first mistake we want to avoid when designing the plan?
Again, that's the peer pressure thing. You may or may not, that influence everywhere in every phase, in planning, in the plan building. So you look at someone else, like elite, Kipchoge's plan. Oh, he's doing 100 miles a week. And I want to be Kipchoge. I want to run 100 miles a week. But he has some talent there, and he's full-time athlete, and he's as a whole team supporting. It's let's start with what you are, and do not just copy someone else's plan and do exactly the same thing. You may end up injuring yourself.
Yeah.
We want to be
So,
healthy runners.
yes, we do indeed. And Kipchoge is human now, right? Because he didn't win the latest Boston Marathon. So, but however, that doesn't mean that we can do the same training that Kipchoge does, right?
No, no.
um, but what I'm also hearing is, like, I'm just thinking about a lot of our runners who do go for, some of their daily runs with their friends. And, let's say you and like Tara, or you and Barb, that you like to run with. Barb's doing an advanced marathon training plan, or Barb's doing an intermediate marathon training plan. And just because you run with her a couple times a week doesn't mean that that advanced marathon training plan or that intermediate marathon training plan is right for you, right? Because you and
Yeah,
Barb
yeah,
might be in different parts of your running journey. So not letting peer pressure
yeah,
influence the plan, right? Or if Barb's like, you know what, I'm running this marathon, like I'm going to get you to sign up with me. And she's like convincing you, right? She's like, I need someone, I need an accountability partner. I love our chats during our run, and I just need a friend to like do this with. So you're going to do this with me, sign up for the race. And then I found us a plan. So, we're going to do this plan that I found, right? Like, how many of you guys probably can relate to that story, right? So this is actually a mistake to avoid. So this is number 3, mistake to avoid, is not letting peer pressure influence your plan selection or design. And
right.
remember, we stated our original goals was for
Mhm.
you to be able to complete your marathon, feeling good, feeling strong, not getting injured, and getting the best outcome possible, right? It's not to establish a, really deeper relationship and friendship with Barb. I don't know who Barb is, but that name just popped in my head. It is to actually accomplish those marathon goals of yours. All right. So, what is your 4th marathon training mistake to avoid, Coach?
Before I get into that, I'll say running friends are great. I love running friends. I like running community. But when you are training, you want to train your own based on your own fitness. So the fourth one is no base building. That's the other thing. A lot of internet plan. You said you search marathon running plan and 18 weeks, 16 weeks, 12 weeks. Go directly into speed work, long runs, which I call long run with spice. That you have some speed work in the middle of long run. They are cool, but they all assume that you have been running consistently for a few weeks with a pretty strong, we say that call that base. You are doing strength training consistently, and so you are less prone to injury. Then you are ready to do that. We are not saying you just come out from, even if you run a couple marathons and then you take, say, 2 months off, then you just follow the 16-week plan with nothing between. No, no, no. Base building. We need it.
All right. So mistake to avoid, not having base building. And we've done a full training on base building updates actually this year. So if you guys check out episode 168 in the Healthy Runner podcast, you will get exactly what base training is, what Coach Lou is talking about. Hopefully you're listening to this episode before you're actually starting marathon training, because you need to complete the base building first. Before actually jumping into a marathon. So if you found this and you were considering signing up for a marathon, but you realize, hey, I haven't run the last 2 or 3 months, and before you actually think of signing up for a marathon 16 weeks from now, consider listening to the base building episode and maybe delay that marathon race of yours for another 4 months, 6 months, 8 months even. All right. So not doing the base building. All right. So what is your 5th marathon training mistake to avoid?
That's still in our big category of the plan designing category, mistake category. And this one will be no cutback week. What is cutback week? Every time we progress during training, our fitness increase, so the intensity get higher and higher. But at some point, every 3 or 4 weeks of hard training, we want to add, or even 5, 6, depends. We want to add 1 week of mostly just easy runs and a lot less. We reduce the mileage too. The key for this is that as you keep going, yes, your fitness increase, but there's an underlying fatigue that keep building up, and you want to rest a little bit. That will help you to get stronger in the next cycles, which by this cycle, I mean before the next cutback phase. Say if you have 5 weeks hard training, you cut it back. When you cut back, your fitness is still growing. But then what you want to do is that during the cutback week, the fatigue start to go down, and then you're ready for the next one.
Yeah, so this is an important one, and I think this is one that many runners forget about, because they think about they're training for a marathon and they need to build up to 26.2 miles. And you kind of think, hey, if I'm training for a marathon, like each week I need to get better and better. I need to run further and further. And I need to progress my long runs. I need to progress my weekly mileage. So when Coach Lou's talking about these cutback weeks, we're really referring to not only your weekly mileage, but also your long runs. And so thinking about those weeks, that they're not lost weeks, it's not like you're going to regress in your fitness. But what Coach Lou is saying is that these are actually essential to allow your body to recover for a week, maintain your fitness where it is. So then the following week, you take that next step up. So, sometimes if you envision a staircase, right, it's not a matter of going up. Let's say your staircase was like 16 steps and you're doing a 16-week plan. On that staircase, there's going to be a couple of platforms. It's not just going to be 16 steps that are equal, in depth. You're going to go up 4 steps, and then there's a little platform where the following week you stay where you are or slightly come down in order to go back up. So these cutback weeks are essential in really keeping us healthy, especially if you're, I was going to say, Lou, especially if you're a beginner marathon runner. But then I was thinking, I'm like, if you're any marathon runner, because if you're not a beginner, you're more advanced and you're even doing harder, faster like speed work sessions, you're doing those long runs with spice that you like to call them. So your training is actually a lot harder. So you even need the cutback weeks even more, so I think everyone pretty much listening to this needs to really embrace the cutback week. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely.
All right. All right. So we are at number 5. So what's number 6 marathon training mistake to avoid?
It's kind of related to the last one, but more specific about too much speed work. You want to avoid it because the body needs to recover. There's this principle, 80-20 principle, which means of all the mileage, let's say 40 miles a week, 20%, only 20% should be hard work. All the 80% should be easy runs. And by the 20%, I mean only the hard runs during the workout. For example, if you do 3-mile tempo with 2 miles warm up and 1 mile cool down, only 3 miles. So half of it is the speed work. So you count that towards the weekly 20%. So if you have 40 times 20% is 8. So that alone that's 3, and you have 5 miles hard. Maybe you can include that in the long run as a spice.
Yep.
But don't do more than that because the body just doesn't recover fast enough. So if you do more than that, your body will. That means you probably do not do the 20% hard enough. You don't have sufficient recovery to do the speed work really the way we want, or you just fight through and then get injured. So 20%, 80%, 20% of speed work. Do not do more than that.
All right. So not doing too much speed work or doing too much speed work is a mistake to avoid. Gotcha on that point. So what's number 7?
This one you like it. No strength training.
Yeah. So not including strength training, right? It's gonna be super, super important to really build that resiliency in the body so it can tolerate the demands of marathon training. I think everyone's probably heard my take on it, but what's your take and what's your philosophy with strength training, Coach Lou?
Strength training actually have different phases. The basic strength training will help you to avoid injury. But as you keep going harder and harder, when you become more and more advanced runner, the speed work is so hard. You actually have to level up the strength training as well.
Yeah, so to tolerate the demands of the faster running and the speed work.
Hard runs, yes.
Love
That's
it.
my point. That strength training help you build resistance to the injuries, and it kind of grow as your hard training, as you intensity get harder. But you also have to balance because strength training is also stress on your body. You wanna arrange it during the week so you don't do a super hard strength training and then the next day you have hard workout. You probably will not be able to do that very well. So you want to arrange it well so that you can do both strength training and recover enough and then do the workout.
Right. Perfect. All right. So all of those kind of mistakes so far. So we've shared 7 with you now. We've really talked about 2 of them were with goal setting. And then we really covered, 5 marathon training mistakes to avoid that really spoke to the design of your plan and how we design the marathon training plan. So now the last couple, or the next couple, I should say, the next 4 really relate to executing the plan, right? And now you're in the training. So what is marathon training mistake number 8?
This one is related to not listening to your body. Sometimes we get super motivated, which is good, but you also want to listen to your body. If you not feeling very well, you shouldn't really push through. If you are sick, then the plan says I have a hard run there, and you just push through and you try to follow the plan 100%, then that's not 100% good for you because the plan was pre-built. And when you build a plan, even if it's a customized plan, things will come up. And if you don't listen to your body, you injure yourself. If you have a coach, then that you tell the coach and then you can make changes. Listen to your body.
Yeah. So
Not listening to it is a mistake. So listen to your body.
yeah, and I would also add to that, like not being flexible enough to modify the plan to your unique needs. And there's so many of us runners that are type A, me included. And you get it in your head and you're stubborn, right? Like I'm a stubborn Italian over here, that you're just gonna go for it. And sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. And quite frankly, that's usually the cause of the majority of injured runners I see. When we trace back to when their injury started, it was usually missing some of these signs that were happening in their training. And they continued to push through when they were sick, like you were saying, or they were under a very stressful condition. They were doing a lot of travel. They didn't get good sleep, right? All of those things are going to affect how you feel. So you really need to listen to your body. And also, I love the point that you brought up of, even with a customized plan written for you, that plan will need to be modified because it's dynamic. It's
Yes.
ever changing because you're a human and things happen in life. And you need to make sure that they're modified. And that is why I feel very passionate and strongly about how we work with runners is not, just writing different plans for folks because we know this is one of the mistakes. Like we've seen many runners who come to us after they've made these mistakes and want clarity on it through our coaching program. And it is making those, I like to call them like in-game decisions. And it's the decision-making process of, okay, and actually, this literally just happened yesterday. I'm looking at my calendar here. Yesterday, at a runner who was traveling, she went to Hawaii, and she was coming back, and she admitted she was completely exhausted. She's jet lagged. She went right back to work the day that she actually came back, and physically, mentally exhausted. Did a ton of hiking out in Hawaii, amazing views, all of that. But we needed to modify what I had planned for her a couple weeks back because I wasn't planning on that happening, right? So we need to listen to our bodies. We need to be flexible enough to modify it and be okay with that. It doesn't mean that you're not going, if you don't follow the plan to the T, you're not going to meet your marathon goal. And oftentimes this is critical in you actually meeting your goal is to actually modify the plan. So I love this one, Lou. Obviously, you can see I'm very passionate about it because it is a common training mistake, sticking point that I see with so many runners who, come to us for clarity, or they're coming after they get an injury during marathon training. All right. So what is tip number 9 or marathon mistake training to avoid?
This one, we've been talking about that in almost every podcast, from every guest, running easy runs too fast. So easy runs, as we said just a few questions before, should be 80% of your weekly mileage. And what do you mean by easy runs? We use RPE, but if that's too technical, easy runs should be in general 2 to 3 minutes slower than your marathon pace, which is also depending on your current fitness, not your goal marathon pace. Record our first mistake. So easy run should be 2 to 3 minutes slower than your marathon pace. If you just look at someone's Strava and someone they're running say 9 minutes per mile, and on most days, because that's the easy runs. And I can do 9 minutes per mile. I'll do that every day, and I can just run as fast as him. But the thing you didn't know is that they go to race, they run 7 minutes per mile, and then the easy day they do 9 minutes per mile. But then when they train hard, they run way harder. So you shouldn't just compare to someone else's plan, someone's run, and then take their easy run as your easy run because you are at different fitness level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is such a common mistake, and it's one that I think for some of us, you look at the number and you feel like you're not a runner if fill in the blank, if you don't run less than a 12-minute pace, less than an 11-minute pace, less than a 10-minute pace. And for some reason that gets in people's heads, and it even sometimes is an initial goal for people of what's your goal? I want to run less than a 10-minute pace for all of my runs. Well, why? Like that's not, if you want to do this for longevity, we actually need to keep it in the RPE level that you're at. And like you mentioned, rating of perceived exertion. And we really got into a deep dive on this topic with Coach Latoya in episode 174 in the Healthy Runner podcast. So we'll definitely link that one in. But this is such a common mistake, and especially for marathon training, like this can be like detrimental, really, really to your growth, your fitness. And you really just got to check the ego at the door and embrace it. And like Coach Lou just said, your easy days, your easy run should be 2 to 3 minutes slower than your marathon pace. And this is true, tried, tested. Like many people run marathons 2 to 3 minutes faster than what they do the majority of their runs during the week. And it's especially as a beginner, you don't realize that. And you're like, how am I ever going to run an 8-minute pace on, marathon race day if all of my runs are in the tens? Like, and I guess I understand that, not, if I just take my like primitive brain here and take away the run coaching side of things and everything that I've learned, during my running journey, but it will happen. Trust us, right? Like Coach Lou said, he's run 15 plus marathons, has helped 60 plus people like train for a marathon. All of them have run their easy runs 2 to 3 minutes slower than their marathon pace. And I like to just give numbers, for example, like myself. And I always get comments on this when I do races because I'll post whatever the time was, the pace. So for me, my half marathon time is like an 8-minute pace around there. Marathon is going to be 8:15, 8:20, 8:25, whatever, we're kind of using around that ballpark. But my easy runs are in the 10 to 11-minute range. And if I have a really hard week where I'm really extending out my speed work, it's harder for me. Or I'm doing those long runs with spice, with some faster miles in there, those easy runs that week are even slower, and I'm embracing it. And I know it's critical for recovery, critical to keep you healthy during your marathon training build. So such an important one. Sorry, don't mean to like totally rant on this one. Go listen to episode 174 with Coach Latoya. You'll get the deep dive on the easy run. So let's get to the 10th. The 10th marathon training mistake to avoid is what, Coach Lou?
The 10th mistake is to ignore recovery, which kind of related to other things we mentioned about. If you run the easy run too fast, you cannot recover enough. So ignoring recovery. Recovery doesn't just mean easy runs, but also sleep and life stress. Life stress is stress. It's real. and do your foam rolling, massage gun, massage, all kind of things.
Yeah, life stress is turns into physical stress, and it's
It
all
does.
connected. Emotional stress. We just
It
talked
does.
about this with Stephanie Flippin actually. Emotional stress leads to physical stress, and it will impact your training, and it will impact your recovery. And
Mhm.
I think especially, and this is something that I really, you know, found super helpful during training for my second marathon last fall, was doubling down on the recovery and not skipping out on, my foam rolling, my soft tissue care that I like to call it, taking care of my feet, like really, making sure after those long runs when, the feet are sore, like they're heavy. You've been on your feet for a long time. You're going to be out there for 2.5 to 3 hours pretty much for like those longer long runs, right? When you're marathon training. So, making sure you are taking care of your feet, you're doing whatever recovery tools that you have in your toolbox. You're maybe getting massages, you're using your percussion gun, your foam roller a lot, you're elevating your feet, maybe you're using compression socks a little bit more often.
Mhm.
All of those things are super critical when you're marathon training. Like you should
Indeed.
be implementing them because recovery bucket is one of our 6 steps to growing as a runner. So like all of us should do it all throughout the year, but especially during marathon training time, you need to double down on this, and it is super important to get you through the training and
It
beyond,
does.
right? So you're not, winding up, you run your race and then you're going to rehab and you need to get rehabbed for an injury now. You recover from your race and you resume your normal lifestyle of getting out there for your mental clearing runs.
Yeah, I want to add one example here. I see a post that someone's having some minor injuries, but usually get just really minor, and so a few days of recovery will be fine. But then in the plan, there's a 20 mile. Usually there's 20 mile, right? So he said, I still have this 20 miles in. So, but I, but I still have this little injury that need a little rest. But should I just push through the 20 miles because everyone's doing 20 miles? Then at this point, recovery takes priority. Uh, One run doesn't make or break the whole thing. It's think about it. You run during the training, you run 500 miles, and the race day is 26 miles, so it's 5%. So one run doesn't really matter that much. It's accumulated build up. However, if you don't do the recovery, you'll get injured. You don't get to the start line at all. So recovery very important.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, super, super important. And it is more of, really crossing that mental threshold of like, you have to run a 20. Technically, you don't have to run a 20, right? Like if you could run 18, you can finish a marathon. We've even seen other folks run less than that and finish a
Yeah.
marathon. Not that we advocate that from like a training standpoint, but like physically it can be done.
Yes.
All right. So what's the 11th marathon training mistake to avoid?
This this important one. Not fueling your runs with proper nutrition. Nutrition means both the gel that whatever you take, the food, and electrolytes. You shouldn't just drink water because the sweat is not just water. There's salt and electrolytes in the sweat. If you sweat a lot and you just drink water, the body's imbalance, fluid imbalance will be broken. That's when you have cramp or even have shock. So don't ignore that. And feel, of course, we run on feel. But also when we keep running, the blood sugar drop low. So the little gel we take will help raise the blood sugar, which is most important to get our brain back to function. Even if you have all the energy in your body, if the brain doesn't work, it doesn't work. and the brain can only use sugar, blood sugar. It doesn't take, we say running burns fat, but the brain doesn't take fat efficiently. So you want to have fuel, you want to have electrolytes. So fueling, no fueling is a problem. So make sure you fuel.
Yeah, and Brooke, our registered dietitian and coach on our Healthy Runner team, will be very happy to hear this one because the fuel is the spark that we need, right, for our marathon training. And these are most critical for those of you who haven't embraced yet fueling your runs, haven't started doing that. The runs that are most critical is your long run and your speed work sessions are going to be really needed. If you're doing a shorter run, maybe you can get away with that without fuel, but definitely your long runs and your speed work, like Coach Lou said, it's really going to allow you to actually feel confident when you finish these, because they won't feel like a slugfest. They won't feel like you're so defeated, like, oh my goodness, 14 miles felt terrible. How am I ever going to run 26.2? Or my legs just like feel like they're giving out. They feel so heavy. And like these are the things that people say when they're not fueling properly. So, fueling properly for your runs, very critical. I love the fact that you brought up the fueling during the run with gels, the electrolytes, and then I'll also add in there fueling before the run, right? Especially those long runs, and taking your pre-long run fuel, making sure you eat something sustainable food that you're practicing, because that's what you're going to need to do for your marathon race. Doing that during your training is going to be super important as well. All right, we're down to the final marathon training mistake to avoid. Get the drum roll out.
Then that's also related to the final phase, the tapering. People have tapering craze because you have all this energy. You cut back on the runs, you get some extra time and extra energy too, because that's time we cut back the strength training as well. And I already noticed few athletes start to add some actual runs in more than I planned. So I quickly called a stop. So the mistake is to add some extra miles into workouts, into runs, during the tapering phase. The tapering phase, you have extra energy, you want to conserve it, you want to save it, so you can use it on the race day. You will feel strange, but that's how it works. It's a science how it works. And if you feel like, oh, I need to use all this energy, then you don't have that on the race day. So don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah, so don't waste that extra energy, right? Save it for the race day. So the mistake is really, adding more miles, pushing harder during your runs, during your tapering phase, and, not embracing the taper and not really, completing it as it should be. And like Coach Lou said, there's science behind this, right? This is why all, elite endurance athletes, like, they taper, because the science is true. Like, you basically are allowing our bodies to adapt during the training. So we actually are running longer and we're getting more quote unquote fit, right? So our fitness is improving, but we're going to eventually get to a point where even though our fitness is improving, the training is so hard, we can't give our all. So the whole purpose of the tapering is to actually have this period of recovery. So then on race day, we're feeling 100%. So we can give it our all on race day. So I love that one. 12th and final marathon training mistake to avoid is not adding in those extra miles or pushing too hard during your tapering phase. So as we get into the final stretch here, Coach, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. If you can change one thing about the misconception of marathon training, what would that be?
You don't have to run every run at marathon pace. It's so common, so common. I see that endless times, especially for people without a coach. So common. And I used to do that too. That end up, you try to run everyone fast, and so you kind of have the same pace for a race day and the easy runs and the everyday runs. But if you with a structured program, avoiding all the mistakes we talk about, the easy runs you run kind of slow, but then the race day you suddenly get 2 or 3 minutes faster. That's because you follow all these steps. So don't run all the run at the same speed. You don't have to run every run at the marathon pace. It's a common. It's reasonable. You say, oh, I want to run 26 miles at marathon pace. So I just run every run at marathon pace, and I get longer and longer and longer and longer. I hope I can get to 26. I see that endless times. It doesn't happen that way. That's exactly when you see people, we call bunk, they go to mile 20, and suddenly there's a huge cramp or just suddenly out of energy, and then there's sudden drop of pace because it just doesn't work that way.
All right. I love that one. Yes. All right. I hear that all the time as well. So thank you for bringing that up. I love it. So guys, just to recap here, in this episode, really, Coach Lou shared with us 12 marathon training mistakes to avoid. I've been taking notes over here. So number one was choosing the plan based on target fitness rather than your own fitness. Number two, comparing yourself to others or even your younger self. Number three, letting peer pressure influence your plan selection or design. Number four, not base building. Number five, not including cutback weeks. Number six, doing too much speed work, not following that 80-20 principle. Number seven, no strength training. Number eight, not listening to the body or being flexible to modify the plan to your unique needs. Number nine, running your easy recovery runs too fast. Number 10, ignoring recovery. Number 11, not fueling your runs with the proper nutrition. And 12, feeling that extra energy and adding more miles or pushing extremely hard during the tapering phase. Those are fantastic. Guys, if you follow these and you avoid these, you are going to definitely, crush your marathon. And if you're not sure of how to implement all of these 12 mistakes into your marathon training and want to get the structured run plan, strength plan for running, proper mindset, nutrition, recovery, modifications that we talked about before, that really Lou talked about, then you can get the full support from our Healthy Runner coaching team. You can simply check out our coaching program by going to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/coaching or click the link in the show notes that I have for you. And don't forget to download your free How to Grow as a Runner roadmap that I talked about today, so you can start implementing all of those principles into your training. And you have to implement, guys. Now that you listen to this, right, you took that first step. So we need to actually implement this. Don't just listen to us, like actually do it. And if you've got anything out of today's training, if this was eye-opening, you learned something, please copy the link, share it with a runner who is embarking on their marathon training journey, so we can help more runners be able to cross that 26.2 finish line feeling stronger and more confident. And honestly, most importantly, I want our community to be able to enjoy lifelong injury-free running. So thank you in advance for doing that. Coach Lou, as always, thank you so much for taking your time to come back on the show, educating our running community about these common marathon mistakes to avoid.
My pleasure.
And thank you to the listener, whether you're listening to this during a run, hopefully you're crushing that run, listening and following these tips, or if you're watching the video version in our Spark Healthy Runner YouTube channel. I see you guys and I appreciate you. If you like this training, then you'll surely like the next. If you're listening on the podcast, Queue up episode 159 to learn all about how to grow as a runner in 6 easy steps. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, just click the video that I have for you here. Let's maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and let's just keep on running. Until next time.